Hello, hello.
Of course, you know John de Lancie is here. We are also joined by his son, Owen de Lancie. What a pleasure. First time for us. How are you today, Owen?
Good, thank you. Very good.
So,
Good to meet you.
Yeah, good to
everybody at
meet you guys.
home, if you don't know, Owen has something called Fanfair Signatures. We are new to this game, but it's freaking incredible. Can you please tell us, Owen, the genesis of this idea?
Well,
Yeah.
wait,
So,
before you do
oh,
that,
yeah.
Owen, before you do that, I want to give
Ooh.
a little more intro. Um,
Okay.
so I did get a chance to meet your dad on the cruise. Talk with him a little bit. And during that time, he was raving to me about you and the work that you do. And we did spend time, just going over some really cool designs that he said that you came up with. And I first thought, wow, that's a great idea, number one. And number two, I wanted to say, I thought also, John, that it was great that you were working with your son and that you were enthusiastic about it. So I wanted to say that was another sign to me about just what a good person you are and a good father that you are. So having introed with that as well, tell us more about
Yeah.
what you're doing, Owen, and the origin of this.
Yeah. So I think, to some extent, it's sort of serendipitous. I don't think certainly neither my dad nor I intended to ever do this together. So essentially what it is that, as I joke, for most millennial children, I think I'm the default IT person for my parents. And so part of that is, to some extent, taking care of my dad's website. So, helping to manage it, keep it updated, and whatnot, keeping it relevant. And so part of that is going through the email stuff that comes through. Just people write in all the time. When the pandemic hit, all of the conventions completely shut down, and what that meant is that we started to see a flood of people writing in saying, "Hey, I was really hoping to get to see you, and now it's closed, and who knows if I ever will. Can I send something to you in the mail? And I'll put cash in the envelope, and then you can sign it, and then you can go back to the post office and send it back to me." And I remember talking about this with my dad, and it was sort of like, I don't think that's even possible at this point. And so I started writing back to people saying, "I'm so sorry. We don't, stay safe. We have no idea what's going on. Hopefully things will turn back on soon." But as I'm writing these emails, I'm going, "Oh, wait a minute." So to take a step back, my partner and I met in architecture school in Canada, in Vancouver, UBC grads. We started a business about 10 years ago where we started to, while we were working in architecture, we started to do sort of in-house design and print manufacturing for a lot of different things, but, e-commerce brands, but also for, hotel chains and government agencies and things of that nature. And so that was our business at the time. And as I'm writing these emails,
So just to clarify for those, to give a visual for people, because I've seen some of this stuff, and these are like architectural layout, like schematics of city blocks or of neighborhoods, kind of in different, really interesting and unique layouts for big companies to put in their offices, or for
totally,
different things
absolutely.
like
So
that.
we would use a lot of our architectural, like we were doing a lot of urban planning. That was actually my specialty in architecture. So we were doing a lot of what is called GIS, geographic information systems, which is essentially how all mapping is made, right? You go onto Google Maps, it's all GIS data. Well, that data ultimately has to be surveyed from somewhere. Somebody has to actually go out onto the earth and survey it, although now we have satellites. But we were using that to create pieces of work, of artwork, that we thought were interesting because of both the data they were showing, which was real, but that the data was actually beautiful, like in a visual way. You could display it in a way that was like, "Oh, that's actually really interesting." So it almost looked like modernist art, but then when you looked, you're like, "Oh, that's actually New York City, isn't it?" Or whatever it was. So that was our business. So I'm writing back to these fans, and all of a sudden, it sort of just dawned on me. I had this thought. I'm like, you know what, maybe we could do something here. So one of the things that we use a lot in our illustration work and whatnot are tablets and drawing pencils and styluses. It's now ubiquitous in the design world, right? The technology's gotten incredible. And so I just said, Dad, here's a thought. What if we were able to do this? What if we could create a piece of art? We could, we have 30 manufacturing sites around the world in our business. I could maybe get this to you. I could maybe take requests from the people who are asking for them. And then you can just sign them I'll send you some of our hardware, and you can, sign and write a note and whatever. And then I'll figure out how to get it to the fan. That was really the genesis moment. My dad was a little bit, I have to say, he was a little.
So I jumped in, and I jumped in in my usual way. I went, no.
That'll never work.
No, too complicated.
Too complicated for sure. So I said, look, let me give us a chance. Let me concept this. Let me create like an MVP for this. Let me figure it out. And he said, okay, fine. So on his website, because that was the mechanism at the time we had, we set up just a little quick shop, and I added a thing in the menu bar that just said autographs. And now I started to write back to people saying, I know, look, at some point these things will turn back on, these events, but until then, this is how we'd like to facilitate your request. It went really well. It went really, really well. People resoundingly found it amazing. They were so appreciative, and it started to catch on, and it started to build. And then my dad started to talk to some of the other actors.
So this is original artwork. Is that? So
let me step back and talk about that. So once the thing started to move, we were kind of skirting the line a little bit. We were doing stuff that we felt was okay enough to artwork wise to not, but then at a certain point, once, my dad had, I think Armin Shimmerman and Bob Picardo were like, okay, I'll give it a try too. At that point, I went to my partner and I said, okay, we need to figure out the art part. So we went to CBS at the time. Now it's Paramount. And we basically pitched the idea to their licensing department and merchandising department. They're like, I think it's awesome. And they said, let's do it. And we had come to the table a little bit with like some concepts for them, that I had done ahead of time for my dad. And they were like, oh, these are cool. And so that's kind of how it started. So we formed a partnership with CBS for Star Trek. They gave us, the right to now do whatever we wanted and to really have fun. And, I think the artwork side of things, our sort of mantra or our mission statement from the beginning of our business as like art design and manufacturers has always been, it needs to be something I would be okay putting up on my wall. And to that end, that's kind of where this whole stylistic thing was born, that I think we've got a style about ourselves, certainly, in terms of oh, there we go. I was wondering if we had been cut off.
Oh, right.
So, we started down this road of like these very graphical illustrations. I think it's in keeping very much with what we had been doing in our past work. And something that we felt was really different from, I grew up around, and Sarek, you did as well, right? Like floating heads on a space background kind of thing, kind of 90s, 80s stuff. So we said, no, let's do different. Let's do something different. Let's do a more modern take. Maybe there's like a vintage thing that we're doing, right? A lot of people think they're kind of vintagey and inspired and whatnot. Here, if you go to some of the ones of like Armin or even a Bob, those ones are the ones where we really started to utilize a lot more of the. So in any case, that's the genesis, and that's how this all kind of started, and it just kind of snowballed from there. So you can see sort of like a. This is almost like it's like, what if Quark had his own show that was like Cheers, like, Quark's Bar. In any case, we had fun with the stuff. And I think that also people really responded to that. people were saying, we were getting comments in, like review requests were coming back. People like, finally a piece of Star Trek art my wife will let me hang in the living room and not down in the basement.
Yeah.
So that's been fun. But yeah, it's been going really great since then. And at some point, things we've got it onto our own website. We created our own brand, and that's now its own entity, Fanfair. At some point, we kind of looked at each other, my partner and I, said, I think this is now the business. And from there, we've been innovating all along. We created the Fanfair app, which is now the tool that is much more professional than what we had my dad doing at first, where all of our celebrities are signing on it. We're making new partnerships all the time. I'm talking to all sorts of people every day. You'd be from Power Rangers to Hall of Fame quarterbackers. I'm talking to them all now. So
I think
that's it. That's the idea.
Yeah, that's the beginning of the idea. Obviously, there is no end to it. I want to commend you, first of all. Visually, it looks absolutely beautiful. I was fortunate enough to see some of the architectural stuff that you designed before you even got into the realm of Star Trek, and that stuff was beautiful as well. And
thank you.
Let me know the talent was already there, that the vision was there, the artistry was already there. And yes, I think you really hit a marketplace that really has no limit to it, because the desire for these kinds of collectibles, only increases. And then also, we've seen some stuff that is not as beautiful and not as well made, and the craftsmanship and the quality and attention to detail is not always there. And clearly you're putting that into this.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Sorry, go ahead, Dan.
I wanted to add to that, and that is that one of the things in which Owen and myself have been finding, and that is that many people will respond by saying, I've never been to a convention, and quite literally, they're too far away. They cost too much for me to attend. I can't afford the airfare and the hotel and the convention fees and stuff like that. But this gives me a way to be involved, and I so appreciate it. I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, So you beat me to the punch. I was just about to say the same thing. I think what's interesting is, what we are making here is a virtual, personalized autograph, right? And we stress that all the time. This is hand done every time. Just because it's not a Sharpie doesn't mean that my dad or anybody else, any of the other actors, aren't seeing your name. The power of them seeing your name is meaningful to people. Seeing, what you write as a note, as a, context, I'm celebrating, whatever. And they see that and they write it by hand, and each one is unique. And I think, for a lot of people, like my dad said, who, there is some impediment to them traveling or getting to an in-person event. This just opened the door to all of that, right? And we do see that a lot. We see a lot of comments online, in our reviews, people just saying like, I would have never been able to have done this before. I'm so happy about this. And I think that's been great.
Also, just explain that you can get them, whatever, I can't quite see, this size, but you could get it this size, and you can get them framed, and the quality. Somebody brought me one. I haven't seen these until recently. Somebody brought me one at a convention, and I said, "Let me look at this closely." I went, "Oh wow, that's paper quality. This is." I don't know what. Tell about. Well,
what we typically say, when we're dealing with this kind of stuff, like if we're talking to partners or anything else, we had this issue, which is that as you said, Sirach, there's no limit to who can be on the platform. And to that end, we are talking to currently people who, they might be charging, they might expect, and people will expect that the signature prices, they charge a lot for their autograph. So we needed a product that hit the top of that mark and then could be utilized all the way down. And so what we decided is that instead of like parsing it and saying like, oh, well, we have cheaper product, and then, you know, oh, well, if you're getting a signature from a, you know, an A-list celebrity, it's going to be a higher end product. No, we just said, look, what's the highest end product that we can do that is affordable and people are going to be very impressed with, and that's what we do. And we just do it across the board. We just said, no, we're not going to parse this. We're not going to like have tiers or anything like that. It's just going to be, what is our best version of our print manufacturing? That's what we're slotting into for this product. So yeah, I mean, you know, the frame print, which I suggest, you know, it's very high end frame print, wood, professionally matted. It's got all of the museum grade stuff you'd want with the acid free papers and inks and the optical acrylic glass, which, you know, keeps the UV protected and all that kind of stuff. Comes right out of the box frame, you know, ready to hang. So I think it also just makes it easy. You know, part of what I say to everybody is, you know, we've created a tool. This is less our product than it is my dad's product, right? It's a connection between him and his fans. And so what we've created is actually just a tool for the facilitation of that connection to be easier for everybody. We'll handle all the rest of it, but we've just made that simpler for everybody.
You know, that's very similar to what Sirach and I and our team do, which is we're bringing conventions, and you are bringing art, and you are bringing the signature experience to people that otherwise would not have it. Like you mentioned, some people, they can't afford it. Other people, they have 5 children that they have to watch.
Yes.
Other people are ill or disabled. There's so many reasons why people can't go do these in-person things, and we have to create ways for them to get that experience anyway. Otherwise, they have to just live their lives watching other people experience these things. But what you're facilitating is actually a great thing. It's not just a fun thing, but you are going to create mementos of a lifetime that people would not ever get a chance to have. And I hope that you're going to start getting these messages from people saying, thank you so much for this. This is something I always wanted, but never would have gotten. So look forward to those, I would say.
Well, and I'll share one more with you, which was certainly a lot more meaningful, or not a lot more, but it was very meaningful to us as a team, which was that, and especially I think over the pandemic, although they still come in, because of the on-demand nature of this, you know, you don't have to, it's not like you have to coordinate waiting around for an event. And certainly who was flying to Cincinnati to get their mother a John de Lancie autograph for her birthday, like too hard to organize. Now, with the on-demand nature of this, you see a lot of requests from people. Either they're buying it for somebody or they're buying it themselves. But we had people like over the pandemic who were like, I've been in hospital for 6 weeks. I've had no human interaction. People come in full hazmat suits. Every day it feels like I'm about to die. Armin wrote something to me, and they got it into me in the hospital and hung it in this room I'm in this, you know, bubble I'm in, and it has meant the absolute world to me, and it has given me hope again. And it's, I mean, honestly, I was almost like, oh my God! I showed everybody when I saw it come in. I was like, it's like goosebumps a little bit, because we're seeing the product being used in that way as well, where it can be used as words of encouragement. It could be used as a commemoration of some event somebody's having. It can be used to roast people. We get some of those as well. I think that all in all, it's enhanced the memorabilia piece, right? Almost, because when you go and you get an autograph, you know, it's for yourself, and so, you know, it's a self purchase.
And also, I want to add, you don't have, I mean, as the person who signs these at conventions, you don't have time to write what the person on Fanfair might say. I mean, I just did one a couple of days ago. This is for my 91, and there's a little, you know, thing that this is for my 91-year-old father. He has always been a Star Trek fan. You know, he loves the fact that you say, what was it? The trial never ends, because at 91, he really knows that. You know, please, you know, so I'm writing specifically to him, Arthur, you know, the trial. you and I both know the trial never ends.
We see a lot with Bob, because we made, I think, what a fun kind of like medical poster, like almost you could see, EMH, like it's almost like the manual, like, oh, before you actually start this thing, make sure you read this manual. People love that. And actually, he's got a lot of actual doctors who are fans, right? And so you had a lot of people ordering these for their own, medical practices or something, which was also kind of fun. There's so many different things. I think that's the thing that was really eye-opening to us. Was I grew up, as I said, in the convention circuit and this autograph memorabilia circuit, and so I thought I knew it, and I thought I knew where our product would fit. And we were really surprised at how many creative ways people are coming up with to use this, right? All of a sudden you make it on demand, and it's like, sit back and let the community show you actually what your product is. And that's been fun. That's been really fun.
I got a couple questions. One, we know that it's customizable, so you can say whatever you want, but is it also like, if I don't, because sometimes I get people at the conventions, they just want an autograph. They don't want anything on there that just, can you put your name? Maybe sometimes they say your character name. Is it possible to get some of those done just with an autograph and a character name as well?
You don't have to pour your heart out to my dad if you don't want to. You can. There's an option that says, let John surprise me, is what we've called it. And essentially, then it's like what you said, right? My dad will just write, something. I mean, without context, it's hard to know, what to, but he'll come up with something, fun.
Also, I mean, to answer your question directly, sometimes it's just I will see just the autograph,
right?
And,
yeah, so that's doable. And then the other thing, the question is, what is the time frame if I were to, let's say I want a custom piece, I order it, how long can I expect before that thing comes to my house?
Yeah, so obviously every actor has their own schedule, right? And every celebrity has their own schedule. Once the order is with them, it's up to them. Most of our talent are signing pretty regularly. On our end, once that signature and that custom message is completed for that customer, within 24 hours, we have manufactured in country from one of our print houses. If it's somebody in the UK, then it's our London office. If it's in Canada, it's our office in Toronto, and it gets out. It's in the mail in 24 hours. So what I would say is, it's mostly dependent, and it's not a downside to some extent. People go like, oh, so I have to like wait for the actors. Well, yes, but also this is authentic. This is real. They are really signing this, and so if there's something, if they're filming, if they're on set that day or something, and there's some reason they didn't get to it that day, it's because it's really them, and there's nobody else doing this but them.
Right.
So
that's for a good reason.
Yeah, for good reason, exactly.
Except for when I'm sailing.
Yes.
Sacrosanct period of time. At which point I say, well, 4 or 5 days later, but
So we're just about out of time here, everybody. I do want to make sure everybody knows it's fanfairsignatures.com. That's FAIR, not FARE, fanfairsignatures.com. You can find that link in the description box below if you're listening in. Description box below. If you're watching, it's in the description box below. Click on that. It's a very easy to use website. As you can tell, I was able to use it, so pretty easy for me.
Good.
But that's about it for us. Everybody, make sure you do that. If you want to buy gifts for somebody, if you want to buy yourself a gift, because we all know sometimes we don't get what we want, and it's okay to get yourself a gift or somebody else.
Right.
So
practice a little self-love.
Owen and John, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you. Hope to see you on the cruise, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. Thank you for doing this. And
yeah,
it was
thank you guys.
And Owen, it's always nice to see you.
I bet he means it too.
Oh, I'm sure.
All right, everybody. We will see you next time. Thank you very much.
Okay.
See you soon.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
Bye.